Chapter 18. Secret Keymaker. Fred Jenkins and the man with him proved to be fast walkers. They apparently were in a hurry to get somewhere and did not turn once, so Nancy felt sure that they had not spotted her car following them. After walking 2 blocks, the men went into a garage. Ned parked some distance down the street, and they waited. Soon, a battered old car was driven out of the building by Fred Jenkins. The slight man sat beside him. "Let's go," Nancy urged. "But try to keep at least 2 cars behind them." The trail led a good distance out into the country. As Ned watched the road, Nancy kept her eyes on Fred and the other man. So far as she could judge, they took no particular notice of the couple. Presently, the men turned left on a narrow dirt lane which led toward the river. "Shall I still follow?" Ned asked, stopping at the turnoff. "Not with the car," Nancy replied. "How about parking it over there among the trees? Then we'll follow on foot." "Okay." After Ned had put the top up, locked the car, and pocketed the keys, the couple started down the lane. There had been no rain for several days, and the roadway was extremely dusty. The tire tracks of Fred Jenkins' car were easy to see. Nancy walked in the grass along the side, explaining that it was less dusty, and also it might be just as well if the 2 of them did not leave footprints. The lane was long, and as they came near the river, there were trees on both sides. They were so close together that it was difficult to see anything beyond them. Suddenly, Nancy stopped short. "I hear a car. It sounds as if it's going from the river in the direction of the main road." "Do you think Fred left his passenger at the riverfront and has taken another lane back?" Nancy shrugged, but quickened her step. A few minutes later, she and Ned could see the water. The lane turned right and ended in a small clearing where a ramshackle cabin stood. Fred's car was nowhere in sight. "He went that way," Nancy said, pointing to a field of tall grass beyond the shack. A wide track of broken weeds showed where the car had been driven into it. "They must have spotted us," Ned remarked, "or they'd have gone back up the lane." "I wonder if they had business at this cabin," Nancy pondered. As she started toward it, Ned caught her arm. "Better let me go first." He knocked on the door. There was no answer. After several knocks, the couple concluded the cabin was vacant. Ned tried the door, which opened easily. There was only one large room, and no one was in it. "You stand guard at the door, Nancy," Ned suggested. "I'll just take a look around to see if I can pick up any clues." Nancy looked out at the lane and field, then turned to see what progress Ned was making. He was opening cupboards. All proved to be bare. Ned began to sing out. "Snoopy Ned Nickerson went to the cupboard to find Nancy Drew a clue. But when he got there, each cupboard was bare, and so there was no clue for Drew." Nancy laughed heartily. She was about to remark that perhaps they had better go, when Ned slid back a panel under the sink. Forgetting that Nancy was standing guard, he cried out, "Nancy, look at this!" She darted across the room as he began dragging out a heavy machine. Nancy stared at it in utter astonishment. "It's a key-making machine!" "It sure is," said Ned. He reached farther back under the sink. "And here are boxes and boxes of blanks. This is a locksmith's secret workshop." "And I suspect," Nancy said, "that the locksmith is Fred Jenkins' father. If I'm right, he could make keys to open many locks." Ned looked at her. "Are you trying to say that he opens any door he wishes to in the Rorick house? In other words, he's the phantom thief?" "I have a strong hunch he is," Nancy replied. "In that case," Ned said, I think we should take this machine and the blanks to the police, and you should report your suspicions to them." "I agree about taking the machine to the police, but I haven't a shred of evidence that Fred or his father have anything to do with it." She decided not to mention their names until she had proof of their guilt. Since the key-making machine was heavy, Ned said he would bring the car down. He asked Nancy to keep out of sight behind some trees in case the men returned. No one came, however, and in a little while the machine and the blanks were loaded into the car. Ned drove at once to police headquarters. Chief Rankin, on duty now, was very much interested in the couple's story and was glad they had brought in the machine. "I'll have some of my men watch the cabin to see who goes there." As Nancy and Ned finally drove toward the Rorick house, Nancy had an idea. "Are any hardware stores open this late?" she asked. "One is. What's on your mind?" "I was just thinking," said Nancy, "that if the key-making machine we found belongs to the Phantom, he won't be able to make any more. So if we put a new padlock on the library door, he can't get in there." "That's right," Ned agreed, and turned down a side street to a hardware store. The new padlock was purchased, this one with an alarm on it. Then the couple left. When they reached the Rorick home, Mrs. Holman told them where the other young people had gone. She and Uncle John were just about to sit down to dinner and asked the young couple to eat with them. "Then you can tell us all that has happened," the housekeeper said. Smiling, Ned sniffed the air and said, "I smell roast beef. How could we refuse?" The others laughed. A few minutes later, the four sat down at the table. Nancy and Ned both laughed and shuddered upon hearing the story of Dave's fall into the chimney. Then they related all of their adventures and why they had bought a new padlock. "This is a brand new type," Ned said, showing how it worked. "The clerk told us they just came in, and his store is the only one in Emerson to carry them." "It has an alarm on it," Nancy explained. "If anyone tries to pick it tonight, we'll certainly know it." "Very good," said Mr. Rorick. Mrs. Holman added, "I'm sure I'll sleep better now." Nancy said that she had a plan to put into operation after dinner. It would prove whether or not the Phantom did enter the library by way of the door. "Uncle John, would you mind going in there as soon as it's dark and turning on all the lights? Don't draw the curtains. Take all the bills from your wallet and place them in a couple of the books with the word roar in them. Be sure to put them on the pages which match the amount of money." Uncle John smiled. "You want to trap the Phantom?" Nancy laughed. "That's right. If he's watching, I'm sure he won't be able to resist the money." Mrs. Holman remarked, "It's deliberately inviting a burglar into your home, but I suppose it's worth the risk if it will trap the thief." About 10 o'clock, Bess and George and their dates arrived, and the whole group talked for some time. Uncle John had played his role of planting the money in the library. The old padlocks had been removed and the new one installed. Everyone felt sure the mystery was about to be solved. Ned, Bert, and Dave offered to keep watch, but Mr. Rorick insisted that he could handle the situation. The boys left at 11 o'clock. Windows and doors were securely locked. Then Uncle John, Mrs. Holman, and the three girls went to the second floor. Bess and George soon fell asleep, but Nancy was restless. She kept getting out of bed and walking to the window. About 12 o'clock, as she gazed toward the woods, she saw a flickering light spring up among the trees. "The Phantom is here," she murmured to herself. She watched for some time. Then the light went out. Was the mysterious person on his way to the house? Would he soon let himself in and find the new padlock? Nancy tensed, waiting for the alarm to sound. The minutes crept by. all was silent. Nancy began to feel chilly and went back to bed. She listened intently, but could hear nothing downstairs. Finally, in sheer exhaustion, she fell asleep. In the morning, everyone compared notes. No one had heard the alarm go off. "But how about the money in the library?" Mrs. Holman asked. "If it has been stolen, then we'll know that the thief is a phantom and goes through walls." But the others were certain that the money would still be in the books. The group watched while Nancy opened the padlock, then they marched into the library. Everyone waited excitedly while Mr. Rorick went to examine the hiding places in the books. He picked up one and looked inside. A peculiar expression came over his face. He did not speak. Instead, he turned the book upside down and shook it. No bills fluttered out. End of chapter 18.